Welcome to movie number 18 from 1940, Rebecca. And we're your hosts, Jeff and Diane, and this is yearofhitchcockmovies.com. And we're here. We finally arrived at Hollywood. Hitchcock has arrived in Hollywood to make these pictures, and he's got big names, big budgets, big filmmaking technology, and instant success because Rebecca won the Best Picture for 1940, which is cool. This is also Phase 3. We mentioned last week that we were done with Phase 2. This is Phase 3, and we're just going to call this the Golden Hollywood period. It has just some amazing movies to look forward to. Rear Window, Vertigo, North by Northwest, too many to mention, and right up and not including Psycho. So this is it. This is really the golden era, and we're going to get to some really cool movies. But first, Rebecca, and where to begin? So Hitchcock finished filming Jamaica Inn, a film that actually did turn out to be a huge commercial success, but certainly not a film that Alfred Hitchcock wanted to make. He packed up his family and moved them all to Los Angeles, to Hollywood, to start this deal, the 7-year deal with David O. Selznick Pictures. He won the bidding from all the other producers who wanted to bring Hitchcock to Hollywood, and we start off with the 7-year deal starting in 1939. And there was, of course, much discussion as to what was going to be the first project, what's going to be Hitchcock's first American movie, because, of course, he was very famous at this time. He had made a number of very successful movies in England. And in fact, there was actually a lot of discussion that his first film was going to be about the Titanic. I think even David O. Selznick bought a big ship that was going to look like the Titanic, and I think we can all agree that after Jamaica Inn, Hitchcock probably didn't want to do another period piece about boats. Instead, he wanted to do Rebecca. Now, he had actually tried to buy the rights a few years earlier for Rebecca, but Alfred Hitchcock couldn't afford it, while David O. Selznick could. And it was agreed by everyone that this would be his very first O. Selznick Hollywood movie. Now, David O. Selznick was into these big adaptations of Hollywood, or rather of best-selling novels. Right at that moment, he was doing Gone with the Wind, which was a book everybody read, everybody knew the story, and he was doing that. And same sort of thing with Rebecca. He figured he had a winner in this sort of genre and wanted to do the same thing. And O. Selznick really at the time was an Oscar machine. He had, from 1934 to 1945, we have an appearance by the cat. From 1934 to 1945, his movies were nominated for, nine movies were nominated for Best Picture, and he won Best Picture for 2 of them. That's pretty good in an 11-year span, the pictures being Gone with the Wind and Rebecca. He was also a very powerful man. He was kind of an obsessive workaholic, megalomaniac, control freak, and you know, this is actually going to come into play for this movie and the next few movies over the next few years. Because we all know that Alfred Hitchcock had a pretty good idea as to how he wanted his movies to be. You know, he had an idea of what he wanted to happen, and when left alone to do his thing, the results are usually pretty good. Well, Selznick didn't leave him alone. He was constantly meddling with the script, he was constantly meddling with production, and well, how did that turn out? We'll see, but suffice to say that it won Best Picture. Hitchcock had, with his secretary and with a Hollywood screenwriter named Robert E. Sherwood, well, they had come up with their own script, and they were finished, they were satisfied, they sent it in to David O. Selznick, as if to say, okay, when do we start filming? And wow, the story goes that Selznick just hated it. He sent back a huge memo, scathing memo, saying this is garbage, I want you to start again, rewrite it, because Hitchcock and his team, as usual, made a number of changes to the book. Alfred Hitchcock added a number of comical scenes, he did this, he did that, because as we know, he wasn't really interested in just bringing the book to film. Well, that's what David O. Selznick wanted, and he's paying the bills, he's producing it, so he basically forced them to put the book on the screen, like he was obsessively doing at the time with Gone with the Wind. And really, he wanted to do that because he knew that the book was a huge success, and he didn't want to anger the people out there. And a lot of people at this point had read and loved Rebecca. So, you know, the story was, look, we bought the book, we're doing the book. Now, getting back to Hitchcock and all these changes he made, that's why his movies are so successful. He would do his own thing and add his own little diabolical, interesting things to it. And really, all of the big successes that I can think of, with the exception of something like Rebecca, are things written by him or for him or adapted by him from lesser works turned into something great. That isn't the case here. He never really wanted to adapt a great novel. He thought that's silly. The novel is a masterpiece. The author spent years working on it. Why would you want to turn something like that into a 2-hour little movie? That really didn't make sense to him. And again, well, we'll see. So enough background. So who's in this movie anyways? Because, we got these big stars. Well, how about Sir Laurence Olivier? And although I think he was Sir at that point, but Laurence Olivier is the big star in this one. He plays Maxime de Winter. He's filthy rich well, Laurence Olivier was at the height of his powers at this point in the late 30s and the 40s. He had just been nominated for Best Actor for his role in Wuthering Heights. He's about to get nominated for Best Actor in Rebecca. And in 1948, he does win Best Actor for his Hamlet, which he will be forever known as his Hamlet, and really a big Shakespearean guy. He was actually with Vivien Leigh at the time. He was about to marry Vivien Leigh, and he campaigned heavily once he was cast for her to be his co-star in this movie, Rebecca. Vivien Leigh, of course, was busy being Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, and they didn't cast Vivien Leigh. Selznick actually was instrumental in that. He cast sort of a relative unknown, Joan Fontaine, and that really put Laurence Olivier off, and we'll talk about that after the movie. And this was Joan Fontaine's first big role. She plays the new Mrs. de Winter. She marries Maxim, and she actually doesn't have a name in this movie, which is interesting. Maxime de Winter's, he's a newly widowed man, and his wife, who's no longer with us, is Rebecca. So this is Joan Fontaine being the new Mrs. Maxime de Winter. Well, she was the little sister, Joan Fontaine was the little sister of Olivia de Havilland, also in Gone with the Wind. And she ends up being nominated for Best Actress for her role in this film, so that's pretty cool. Also in this movie is someone named Judith Anderson, also nominated for Best Supporting Actress. She plays someone named Mrs. Danvers in this movie. I know her because she played a high Vulcan priestess in Star Trek III: The Search for Spock. So look for her. You can't miss her. She's the only Vulcan in this movie. Nigel Bruce is in this movie. He plays, of course, Dr. Watson in all those great Sherlock movies. We'll see him again in Suspicion with Cary Grant a few years later. And George Sanders is in this movie. He plays the evil guy in All About Eve. I won an Oscar for that role in All About Eve. So boy, lots of Oscar talk. We'll talk about that after the movie. Now, we said goodbye to Claire Greet in the last movie because she passed away. She was in Jamaica Inn, and that was her last film. But we will say hello to someone named Leo G. Carroll. Leo G. Carroll ends up being in 6 Hitchcock movies as sort of a minor player. That's the second most appearances in Hitchcock movies, except for Alfred Hitchcock. He plays someone named Dr. Baker in this film. We'll look for him. So very good. So here we go. I'm real excited. I have not seen this movie in, what did we decide? 8 years, I think, was the last time I saw Rebecca. And boy, I'm actually pretty excited. So let's do it. We'll talk to you after the movie. So let's watch.